Hi, my name is Lindsay Moore, and I wrote my paper on Valerie Ross's sporting experiences. So, Valerie Ross was born in 1962 in Little Rock, Arkansas. Her father was an active duty service member, and her mother was a homemaker. She also had twin brothers who were 7 years younger. During the 1960s, the civil rights movement was in full swing. This was a time when black people were fighting to end racial discrimination and gain equal rights and protection under the law after the Jim Crow era. Valerie lived on the military base from birth through elementary school, and then when her father separated from the military, her and her family moved to a predominantly white neighborhood where she attended a predominantly white middle school and high school. Valerie explained that her experiences while on base were very pleasant. It was a very diverse environment, and she kind of lived in this insulated military bubble. And her sporting experiences were vastly different once she was outside of that bubble in the civilian world. The purpose of my paper was to explore the ways in which the intersectionality of Valerie's race and gender put her in the crosshairs and presented barriers and restricted her sporting experiences, and then identify the ways that her family's higher socioeconomic status helped to perhaps overcome some of those barriers. For the sake of time, I'd like to briefly talk about two themes that emerged during my interview with Valerie. The first theme were the racial ideologies and stereotypes that Valerie encountered. One of them being that black people are naturally good at track and basketball, and sports like swimming and tennis are considered white sports. According to Barth, one of the academic sources I used in my paper, these norms can be formally enforced as they once were in the Jim Crow South, and they can be enforced at the micro level by a psychological process associated with embracing identities and by social expectations of either in-group or out-group members or both. So in Valerie's instance, her father encouraged her to run track and play basketball. So Valerie explained during the interview that when she would go to track meets, she was only one of very few black athletes, and the rest were white. And the white athletes would look at her and immediately become intimidated by her presence because they thought because she's black, in her words, she was going to just blow them off the track. She also explained how when she tried out for the school basketball team, she was dismissed on the first day of tryouts because, according to the basketball coach, she just wasn't any good. Now, this was in the absence of any kind of conditioning or training, so apparently the coach thought because she was black that her basketball skills should be innate, and they weren't. So she was immediately cut. According to Green et al., another source that I used in my paper, the natural argument appears to be destructive in that it undermines the importance of training, access, early exposure, social reinforcement, and the like. Another theme that emerged during our interview was socioeconomic status. Valerie explained that while she ran track and attempted basketball, she also took private swimming and tennis lessons, in which she enjoyed. According to Peterson and Kern, high socioeconomic students do not avoid any sports. They play sports omnivorously, just as high status people consume other forms of culture. Valerie went to an affluent, predominantly white high school that had both a robust athletic program, including swimming and tennis. According to one of my other sources, Goldsmith, children born into families with a lower socioeconomic status do not have easy access to these types of activities, but Valerie did. So while Valerie enjoyed swimming, she never tried out for her school swim team. And when she was asked why, she explained how the chlorine is damaging to a black person's hair and that it takes time to wash and style. The time that it took to wash and style was daunting. However, chlorine is damaging to all hair. Valerie could have worn a swim cap to prevent her hair from getting damaged. But maybe Valerie felt uncomfortable with doing so because she already stood out being a black student, so maybe she didn't want to do anything else to further isolate herself. According to Coakley, research suggests that adolescents choose activities that are more culturally accepted by racial or gender defined social groups and avoid activities dominated by other groups. Valerie was black, she took swimming lessons and tennis lessons, but when it came to organized sports, she ran track and attempted basketball. In conclusion, typically in the 1960s and 1970s, being black and female presented barriers to sporting opportunities like swimming and tennis. Valerie was born into a family with a higher socioeconomic status. She had college educated parents. She lived in a middle class neighborhood and went to an affluent school, which afforded her access to those sporting opportunities. However, her race continued to act as a barrier. The intersectionality of her identity put her in double jeopardy and most at risk of being discriminated against